guys, Sullivan Owen here in Philadelphia. So I'm having just kind of like a tough week. And I thought that I would take you guys for a quiet walk around the garden. We've had a ton of wind the last few days, so some things were just knocked over, needed to be cleaned up, and that's usually when I pick stuff up to make. And then anything that's like really fleshing out or could use some cutting in order to encourage more blooms, that kind of thing. So let's go walk around the yard and you can see where I collected this stuff from. I think I'm just gonna make a hand-tied bouquet just using some floral tape. So we'll kind of go through everything and I'll really quickly make the bouquet. And yeah, that will just keep it a little bit simple this week. I make something cut from my garden every single week, which you can see over on my Instagram, which is at @Sullivan_Owen. All right, so something's covered in pollen. Like I said, it's been really windy, so forgive if my voice goes in and out a little bit. So I typically carry around a vase of water when I am doing like a cleanup sweep with an eye on things that I can use. If I'm just cutting things to throw away, then I obviously don't carry water. But I will kind of talk you through some of these things and why I cut them when I did. Since if you are new here, I would recommend checking out my garden renovation series. We're kind of redoing our entire yard, much more of it ourselves than we had originally anticipated, but we have the time. So, so some of the things that I'm cutting from in terms of the foliage and shrubs are because in the next phase of projects, which is a patio project and a fence project, some of these plants need to get relocated. So if I can groom them into slightly tidier shapes, I'm not afraid to do that. And then this Clematis foliage, it's apple blossom clematis, which I am incredibly excited about, and I got it, it's still in the nursery cans, and they are getting blown over in the wind, and these were all kind of hanging, dangling pieces. So why not? Some Heuchera blooms that got knocked over. I cheated. I do try to, my husband would really prefer that I leave as much of the flowers in the garden as I possibly can. But this particular Heuchera will be getting moved, and the color was so perfect, I kind of needed it. It's just a little different than the more cream color. The hot pink is a little more unique and unusual. I have some bronze fennel that overwintered, and it's just gigantic, and this plant was sort of dwarfing some of the other things. If you love the smell of licorice, you'll love bronze fennel. If you don't like licorice, you probably won't enjoy it very much, but it's one of my favorites. It looked pretty all winter. I don't know if that's because we had such a mild winter. I'm in zone 7A, but I am growing more, and I think we're actually gonna use it in a few more places because it's just like a really interesting, it's got like an asparagus fern type of texture, but doesn't shed and is not as scratchy as a plumosus fern. So the cats really like it too. These are really young fern cuttings off of probably just like an autumn fern. I can't think of its full name, but I just thought they looked really cool, and I liked the more coppery brown color than the green. This area of fern spread, this is an evergreen fern in our zone, so it's always putting on new fronds, so I never really feel bad cutting from it. My Columbine got pretty knocked around in the wind. So most of these were laying on the ground. And they're part of the reason I think I'm gonna do a short bouquet, because this particular handful is pretty short. So it's been a very strange season for peonies. We had, I think that's pretty much all across the country, but we had a real cold snap in April, late April into the first couple weeks of May. And some of the peonies, while they appeared to be beautiful from a nice healthy foliage perspective, their buds formed and their flowers formed in, like, they were obviously impacted by the cold. So what I've noticed is with my Ito or Ito peonies, which are a cross between tree and herbaceous peonies, you know what, you can check out the peony video for more on that. They're just not as robust flowers this year. This is Kikou. It's this lavender, dusky lavender pink color. Excuse me, that pollen. The lavender dusky color is really beautiful. It's just that the flowers are a little bit malformed this year. They just don't have as many petals. But I'm not gonna complain when the color's that pretty. So these I cut because after 2 days of really vicious wind, they are losing all their pollen in the center. The petals will probably drop in a day or so, so it seemed like cut them. This is Old Rose Dandy, and it is definitely also a different color than it normally is. It's a little more on the pale pink to lavender spectrum, rather than it's normally more of like a brick rose terracotta color. And then this guy is really, I should say she. This is a tree peony called Lois Elaine Lanning. My tree peonies are very young. This plant had 2 blooms on it. One bloomed a week ago. This one bloomed in the last day or 2. And again, it was getting a little beat up. So I am working on a peony video that will just kind of take us through the whole season. And I still have some herbaceous peonies to bloom, but this is the last of the tree peonies. It's quite beautiful. And I think that this one came up pretty true to name, whereas some of the other young plants that I planted in the fall planting video, which you can check out, sometimes the first year bloom is not always true to form. So this is a David Austin garden rose called Munstead Wood. And the plant itself got very leggy and was kind of flopping over, and I keep having to prop it up gently, but it's incredibly thorny. And so I kind of hate touching it to tie it up. So this particular stem was just, it's kind of smothering. It was flopped over, smothering an astilbe. And I'm just using a pretty dull knife to sort of scrape at the thorns rather than, I'm trying not to cut too into the rose. But these garden roses are just really, really thorny. So there's one that was getting knocked around in the wind. These are those thorns, some of these teeny tiny thorns that like just get stuck in, well, they get stuck in my skin because I have very dry, scaly hands. So I'm hoping by cutting some of the really long stems off of this rose plant, I can encourage growth in some of the areas where there's not a lot of growth happening, so that it's a slightly more compact shape, because it's really, otherwise I'm gonna have to move it because it's just really kind of tall. And the canes, it's only maybe 3 years old now, so the canes aren't particularly solid. I'd like to try to keep that, but this is not bent, it's just wind blown. So and then last up is one of my favorite roses. It does not look like much right now, but I can put up like a photo of it from last year. It's called Distant Drums. I liked it so much I added, I think I'm gonna have a group of 5 of them when they end up in their bed. They're more permanent planting. But it's been so cold that everything is kind of different colors. But again, the plant was getting a little strangely shaped. So by cutting off this, like your deadheading, I cut it off at a set of 5 leaves, so that I could encourage more stem growth to happen. So I cut it a little bit longer than I might have on such a young plant, but I'm trying to encourage the roses to grow in more pleasing shapes. I have a video of 4 different hand-tied bouquets that I can put up that's really comprehensive. So I would suggest watching that if you wanna really like a step-by-step, but I do have the overhead camera too, so I'll try to show you how I like lay the stems in my hand. But I'm not working with huge quantities of anything, so we'll just kind of see. I think I'm gonna make just a pleasant, organic shape. The peonies are quite large. 4 is sort of, I mean, it's an even number, but it's an odd number for me. I prefer 3 or 5 of kind of large things, so we'll see how this shakes out. And then, you know, the roses are a little bit of a, and they're gonna wanna do their own thing. So we'll see if we can't find the right piece of foliage to support this rose. It does smell. I mean, I guess I should say, smell makes it sound like it smells bad. I guess I should say it has a pleasant fragrance. I have a terrible sense of smell, but it smells like spicy floral to me. But I'm not aware that, no, this doesn't, that has like plant smell. I always start with foliage. This is copper Tena 9 bark, and they are along our fence line, and they got really beat up in the last year from a black walnut tree that we had removed in the spring. So the fence is coming down and a new fence is going in, and so these will be getting pulled and relocated. So I feel like I can just kind of groom them here and there when I need a little foliage for arranging, and when I transplant them. It won't, you know, I'm gonna cut the plants back a little to encourage them to put new roots in when we move them. This is a Carolyn allspice in a purple, like a burgundy purple. I think it's maybe just called burgundy allspice, but it has those same cool star-shaped allspice flowers on them, but it grows in this like waxy purple bronze to brownish black foliage. It's one of my favorite shrubs. And I got that from Bemerwald's, is a nursery I really love in the area. All right, so since the Columbine is the shortest of my flowers, I'm gonna get, even though it's fairly delicate and I would normally encourage putting that in at the very end, I kind of need to know where the bottom of my bouquet is gonna be. And it's gonna be only as tall as the shortest flower can be. The one thing about the 9 bark is it's a little bit flat. It's a very beautiful color on the back side, but I didn't really have enough to make an all-around shape. So I think it's gonna be like a front-facing bouquet. And if you were doing it as brow bouquet, so much the better, then it's kind of flat and it's not catching on anything. If you're doing it for, to put into a vase, I would say that this would be a bouquet you would wanna put against a wall or in a corner, because it's not going to be completely finished or full on the back. And the fennel can sometimes be amazing and sometimes it gets a little floppy. So I think the way to counteract that is to pull it, kind of to tuck it where you would like it, and then pull it in a bit. That will allow the other flowers to support it. I think just the fern fronds and the Heuchera flowers will be the very last things to go in. So let's figure out where Miss Lois should go. You don't really need anything else, but let's use all of these. That's nice and tall. So the Kikou peony is a more mature plant. I bought it as a 3 to 4 year old plant. So it's a nice healthy size, and it's actually kind of bigger than a lot of Ito or Ito peonies. So I could cut a longer stem. A lot of times with the tree peonies, especially mine because they're younger, I'm trying not to cut too much stem length off of them because we want to encourage the plants to get bigger. But tree peonies take a little while to come into their maturity, but they're totally worth it. There's just nothing like them. So the flat bouquet, or the front facing bouquet, I think is something that I think would work really well for market and CSA bouquets. That's certainly not my area of expertise, but I know that when you're selling farmer's stand flowers or CSA shares and things like that, you're looking to make things appear full, and I think when you make things front facing, you can see I'm able to make a much bigger looking bouquet without going all the way around. When you, sometimes when I see farm stand bouquets, they're wrapped so tightly and they're compressed together in a way that I don't know that everyone can see all the flowers that are in there. So that's just a tip for you guys that are selling your cut flowers. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that guy work. It's just too strange of a shape. I'll put it in like a little bud vase adjacent to where this ends up. So by layering this in and kind of tucking it a bit and then adding this rose on top, I'm able to use the other rose to hold that kind of wonky Munstead wood in place. I think that all right, that can also go in the bud vase. All right, so I think what I'm gonna have to do is use that peony to prop it up, which I think is okay because it lets this shine. I felt like it was kind of distracting up here. All right, so I think to finish this off, I'm just gonna go around with some green floral tape just to kind of, I'm out of shape. I haven't been making a lot of hand-tied bouquets. And just take a look at what I have. So I do think sometimes it's challenging to put kind of delicate stems in one at a time. They kind of get hard to see. So I like making, you know, little mini pieces and adding them in as a cluster. And as much as I was excited to have this kind of sturdy clematis, I think it's the ends that are more interesting. So this is going on the new fence whenever that gets installed. I had ordered, you know, we had ordered and started a lot of these plans before everything changed. So, while I do kind of wish to be working the normal spring schedule that I had planned, I'm pretty grateful that we had started putting some of these plans in place so that I can keep busy. So I think we'll actually call that done. And I'm gonna use the hot pink. This always happens. I either buy something I didn't need or I cut more than I need because it sort of looks like the right color, but in the end I prefer the more subtle copper color. All right, so this is yet another casualty of the wind, but that will likely only make it, it's incredibly short. So when I have to throw that away, probably tomorrow, these can be together. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching my design for my garden this week. If you want to check out the garden renovation series or some of the other floral design videos, you can check out some of my other videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I really do appreciate this support as my business is changing in the current climate. I don't plan on making a video of my design every single week, although I'm sure that would be fun for some of you. The best place to see what I'm cutting from the garden is over on Instagram, so come follow me over there. Subscribe if you haven't, and share this video with somebody that loves flowers. And if you're new, because I did get a bunch of new subscribers, please leave a comment below with what you're looking for out of the videos, because I'm really focusing on the videos that I would have liked to have seen when I was a newer gardener in terms of the no-dig beds, and I have a pretty comprehensive series about drip irrigation coming up. So if there's something you want to know about, please leave it as a comment below. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you soon.